Alright, let's go ahead and graph y equals cosine 3/4 x. Daphne, what's the first step? Yes, write the formula. What is the formula? Shout at me, shout. Good. Daphne, what's your A value? Yup. And Daphne, your B value. Cameron, step number 2. Wait up. 2 pi over 3/4. Yep. Okay.
Multiply 2 pi by 4 over 3, which is 8 pi over 3.
Yep. Ooh, this is going to be nasty. Raise your hand if you got 8 pi over 3. Alright, we did steps 0 and 1. Let's do step number 2, the 4 intervals or the 5 x values, okay? This is going to get messy because all it is just your best friend, fractions. I'm going to draw a y-axis. And I'm going to give lots of space for the x-axis. And if you read step number 2, it says once you find the period, you're going to lay off from 0 to that number. So I'm going to get 5 x values. I'm going to start on the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I chose to use 3 boxes just to space out my graph, so it's not really scrunched. Remember, you want your graph about the size of your palm. So this one I'm going to call 0, or 0 pi over 3. Would you guys agree that's just 0 radians? And then the period, that means my whole graph's going to finish by 8 pi over 3. Okay, from here, it's just a bunch of fractions and midpoints. To find the midpoint, you would add these 2 points and then divide it by 2, and you would get this point. So, class, what is 0 plus 8? Let's do it up here. 0 pi over 3 plus 8 pi over 3, which is just 8 pi over 3. And if I divide it by 2, it's the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. If you do that, you basically get what? 8 pi over 6, and 8 divided by 6 reduces to what? 4 over 3. There's your canceling, and you're left with 4 pi over 3. Okay, we might get lucky. 0, some number. 4, some number. 8. Class, what is it counting by? 2s. Oh, we got lucky. You could have done the same thing, 0 pi over 3 plus 4 pi over 3. You'll get 4 pi over 3 and then multiply by 1/2. you'll get 4 over 6 or just 2 pi over 3. 0, 2, 4. What is this one? 6. 6 pi over 3 really reduces to what? 2 pi. I like to... this is going to be the messy part and sometimes the most difficult because you're working with fractions. So I'm going to circle the ones that are what we're going to use. These are my 5 x values. And in the notes, I call this also the 4 intervals. What is an interval? It's a start and an end. So 1 interval, 2, 3, and 4. That is step number 2. Step number 3, we're going to evaluate these points and create a table. So let's create a table together. Hopefully you have space right below your 5x values. And my 4 points are going to be this, or 5 points, 0, 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, 2 pi, and 8 pi over 3. Everyone say mass production. I'm going to do this thing called mass production table of values. It's not in the textbook, I just made it up. Okay, and I'll explain at the end a different alternative way. To evaluate my points, I'm going to go from right to left. Which direction, class? So I'm going to draw this little circle, and we're going this way. Essentially what I'm doing is PEMDAS. I know I'm not doing PEMDAS like you're supposed to go left to right, but just follow along and hopefully it'll make sense. I just wrote down the x values. And now I need to, what math operation is this? I'm going to, well, in between, I'm sorry. We're going to multiply x times 3/4. I'm going to multiply all of these x values by what number, class? 3/4. Class, 0 times anything? If I cancel my 3's, I get 2 pi over 4, or 2 pi over 4 reduces to 1/2, or pi over 2. Right? That's 6 divided by 12, and 6 twelfths reduces to 1/2. If I cancel my 3's and I cancel my 4's, my answer is just pi. 2 times 3, 6 divided by 4, 3/2, so this is 3/2 pi. 3 pi divided by 2, and then if I cancel my 3's, 8 pi divided by 4 is 2 pi. Everyone say yay! This I call my golden row. I want this golden row because it basically refers to the quadrantal angles on the unit circle. Does that make sense? You will get more and more complicated problems, and as long as you go back to the golden row, you know you're doing this correctly, because that's how you evaluate it. Okay. 3 over 4. Just for this problem. Okay. So let's summarize what we've done. We wrote down the x values. I have multiplying by 3/4, and now I'm going to evaluate cosine of whatever I had. Evaluate cosine at the previous problem. So if I think back at cosine at 0 on the unit circle, the order pair is what? 1, comma 0. And cosine is which one? The first one, right? So cosine at 0 is 1. We already did this yesterday as your warm-up. Class, what's the order pair? 0, 1. So cosine at pi over 2 is 0. Cosine at pi? Negative 1. Cosine at 3 pi over 2? 0. And cosine at 2 pi? 1. Okay, what have we done so far? Let me actually take the time to explain what this table of values is. This is the x values, this is the y values, these are going to be my order pairs. Okay? Now, you could have done them individually. Let me show you how. If you wanted to evaluate 2 pi over 3. 2 pi over 3 times 3/4 gives you pi over 2. Cosine at pi over 2 is 0. So instead of me kind of doing individual problems, I kind of did mass production. Let's graph this. I noticed that my maximums are going to be at 1, so just pick a value. 1. I use 4 boxes, so you better use 4 boxes the other way. Let me go ahead and graph this last row. Zero, 1. 0 on the x-axis, 1 on the y-axis. 2 pi over 3, going right 2 pi over 3, stay. 2 pi over 3, stay. Right 4 pi over 3, down negative 1. 4 pi over 3, negative 1. 2 pi, right 2 pi, and then stay. And then 8 pi over 3, 1. Remember, yours should not look like a V. It would be marked off. It has a little dip, little, and then the roller coaster. It's not a parabola, so don't make it exact U. And this is the graph. Y equals cosine 3/4 x. What changed in this problem? You still have a regular cosine. It does not flip over the x-axis. The only thing that changed was the period, which is just the values on the x-axis.